Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. This podcast is all about helping you to leverage your mindset to create more success. And we have a very special guest with us today. It's Richard C. Wilson. He's a best-selling author and the founder of the Family Office Club, a 2,500-member investor club started in 2007. Richard also owns and operates commercialrealestates.com. Richard, a very warm welcome to the Entrepreneur's Inner Game podcast. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Sure. Thank you, Nina, for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, Richard, I want to get into the nitty-gritty of mindset and the role it's played in your success. How has it helped you to create your success, your wealth?
Really, I think it's having the mindset and some strategies first to pull from before I even knew about the ultra wealthy industry of family offices is really what gave me a big advantage. So growing up, playing a lot of sports, being in Boy Scouts, I'm an Eagle Scout, and then just being mentored by people that gave me strategies and attitudes and mindsets, and then finding the right niche industry was really critical. It wasn't just in the right place at the right time. It was also with the right mindset and the right kind of approach to the industry that made it go well.
And when you were, having this information from, people who are helping you to shape your thinking, at what point did you think, that's what it is? It's mindset. It's the way I'm thinking about things, which makes a big difference. When did you have that realization?
I think I was fortunate enough to be brought up in a house where they kind of just said, hey, you're doing Boy Scouts. Hey, you're doing sports. And I love doing the sports. And so I've always been very much involved in. So it honestly, I think, helped me a lot more than I knew for a long time. I think it was just in the last few years, honestly. I think it was from Tony Robbins. He said that everyone is obsessed with strategy and they're always looking for the shortcut, or like, what's the 4-step process? Or, what's the new diet that's going to make me lose weight now finally, or whatever it is. And for entrepreneurs, it's oftentimes, how do I get to 7 figures? How do I start a business that works? How do I grow to 10 million a year in revenue? And what Tony Robbins said, which I read maybe 2 years ago that really impacted me and I wrote down, was that instead of just focusing on strategy, people should be focusing on their state of mind and the story they're telling themselves, which basically comes down to mindset. And he says everyone focuses 99% on strategy. And I realized in getting my undergrad, in reading hundreds of business books and doing my MBA and going to workshops, going to conferences, almost all about strategy, when really state and story were just as important. So I've been focused more on that since then, but that was a big, realization 2 years ago when I heard that.
Yes, and it was a big realization for me as well, because most entrepreneurs do spend their time thinking, what new strategy can I have in place? What new coach can I take on? And they don't sometimes look inside and see, actually, that's where my block is. And
Right.
That's where my breakthrough is going to come from.
Right, for sure.
What is your biggest learning about mindset? What was the biggest shift that you made that made the big difference for you?
For me, it was realizing after running my business for a couple of years that there were other CEOs out there that seemed to be becoming very successful based on having the right level of persistence in their niche. So a lot of times I would think, I need to find the next business idea to add on to my business. But within every business, there's people, within every category, there's people doing $10 million a year or $100 million a year. And so I realized that getting my personal health in order and really having an advantage, I think, over what I could have personally done if I didn't have this kind of attitude of I need to be healthy and happy first at the core to keep my energy level high. And if I can do that, then I'll have a big advantage. I think that combined with hearing, I think it's Evan Pagan and Dan Kennedy and Dan Sullivan have all encouraged me to think about how if you can aim for success over 10 years or 20 years, then you're more likely to be successful over 10 or 20 years. If all you care about is being successful in 2021, then you could do a lot of things that just focus on 2021, but then after that, you're not set up for as much success. So I think it was kind of the combination of those things. It's like seeing other entrepreneurs excel and wondering how I could, get there. And then hearing these people around me say, if you have this long-term mindset, you're more likely to be long-term successful. And I think that's allowed us to kind of run circles around a competition who don't want to put in the effort to write 10 different books or to host 150 live events or to, put out a couple hundred podcast episodes. If you do the things that others don't want to do because you are focused on the long term, then, people find you more often.
Yes, it's a sustainable success over the long term, which is much more satisfying. Right. And how do you have a daily mindset practice? How do you keep your mindset in tip-top condition, if you like?
Yeah, I definitely do. I try to, at least sleep 7 hours, and then I wake up before the family, so I have some quiet time to kind of get my mind right. And what I start out doing is taking a shower with this laminated page with all of by chance, I've got an updated version of it right here and hold in front of the camera. But basically, I've got this page here, which I laminate, put in my shower, and it has my goals for the month, my goals for the quarter, my goals for the year. And then all of these things are little one-liner sentences that if I did these things, I know I'd be enormously successful. And a lot of people know what they need to do to grow or develop or get to the next level. They either forget to do them, or they're not focused on them enough, or they don't execute on it enough, or they don't seek resources to help them get it done. And so by having all that stuff top of mind is kind of my compass and my roadmap. I'm basically looking at my roadmap and orienting myself for the day. And then after that, while I'm having breakfast, I go over 3 or 4 different books. I've got like a quote book from Dan Sullivan. I've got like a workbook I write in. It's a Napoleon Hill workbook. I then read like a chapter of another book. And then I do kind of a daily journal and daily affirmation thing, which might sound like a lot, but honestly, in like 7 to 10 minutes in the shower, I can read over all my goals and everything I need to do. Over breakfast, when I'm eating and having my coffee anyways, I can get through all of the book stuff in another 10, 15 minutes at most. And then just throughout the workday, I'll do the journaling and the affirmations. But I've just found that morning process really helps things get started right. And then when things come at me in my email inbox or voicemails, I'll think, does this fit where I'm trying to go today? And if not, then I just don't care basically about those things within reason. I just focus on what's most important.
That's amazing. I love that. And I know Tony Robbins has a 10-minute schedule, which he does every single morning. And it's very simple and highly effective as well. What happens when you are blindsided by a piece of resistance that comes up for you, where a mind block just comes and hits you out of the blue, and you react in a way that perhaps you don't want to react?
Yeah, I think the trick for me is not to react at first. The more extreme the event, then typically the more important it is to seek out people that are accountability partners or in my mastermind or business partners and kind of get some third-party perspective. But also, I might feel like writing an email back to someone or addressing a situation rashly, but I found that if I just draft the email and then I snooze it for 3 hours later in the day or that night or the next morning, that by the next morning I've thought it over more. And at first you might think about, oh, how do I explain to this person how bad this is? But that's not very productive. What do I actually want to have happen? And what investment of energy is actually going to give me an ROI versus just, I needed to get it off my chest to the very person who did something that wasn't very professional or wasn't good or productive. So, for example, sometimes you might realize based on what someone did that they need to leave your company if it's an employee, or a partnership needs to end. But it might not be in your best interest to have a knee-jerk reaction and tell them that or fire them right away. Then you don't have anybody in that sales position. It might be best to give them that feedback and prevent anything else really bad from happening if it's possible, depending on what it is, and then get the next employee hired and even trained before you let the other one go, even if they do need to go. And as needed, you could always be transparent. Most of the time, that makes it so people don't work as hard when you're dealing with employees. So typically you can't do that. It's better just to pay them to do nothing than, tell them they're leaving soon and they pretend to do their job, I found. But I think waiting and making sure that what you're doing is constructive to where you're trying to go before responding to things is really, a best practice for me, especially when it's like either an upsetting or a surprisingly bad event happens.
It sounds as if you're choosing your response. You're taking a step back and looking at the big picture rather than just doing a knee-jerk response.
Right. And being selfish in terms of like when something bad happens, you could just be like, oh, why would you do that? We can't work together anymore. Like it's even more selfish to think, okay, well, what do I want here? And either ask for more out of the negotiation, because if they say no, you're going to end the partnership anyways, or figure out how to do the thing which is more in your best interest than just expressing feelings.
The world of being an entrepreneur is a roller coaster. Big ups, big downs. There's rarely a level playing field. What for you is the most important thing in business?
For me, it's integrity in the sense of integrating everything. So, where I live, what I eat, my office setup, who's on my team, what our core values are, what types of clients we work with, what services we offer, all of those things. The more that they're all integrated, then the better things go. And the more that my mindset is integrated with what I actually take action on as well. And the more that things are in conflict, then the more that there's kind of more pain and suffering and frustration and more roller coaster. If almost everything is aligned and then one thing's not, it becomes somewhat obvious and you can just clean out that thing so that everything else is aligned. So that's kind of the thing I think is most important.
And what is an easy way to align all these different parts of our life? Often things that we have no control over.
Right. I think people have control over more than they think they do. I've moved my family from Oregon to Florida and Florida to Scottsdale. And, we've fired clients that paid us a lot of money and, started new businesses and shut down bad partnerships. But yeah, you can't control everything. So I think part of it is having perspective and having a good 3 to 5 business friends that really know you well enough that when you tell them something, they can take it in context of everything else they know about you. Because most people, if you don't know them very well, they'll just give you something superficial or tell you what you want to hear or tell you what their life is like. But if they know you really well, then they'll know your preferences, on how to navigate things. I think that's pretty critical as you get past having just 1 or 2 employees. Every week or month, there might be some issue that comes up that you need to navigate swiftly with confidence, and that can help a lot.
And how do you create a mindset that allows you to build incredible wealth? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, and they're all worth everything by any means. But in terms of our listeners and our viewers who want to know more about how they can create more wealth in their lives, how can they create that mindset that allows more wealth to come in?
I think what's critical is to, it's going to sound a little bit like strategy, but if you don't have this strategy, it's hard to have the mindset consistently. So if you have the mindset that you will be extremely successful over the long term, and no matter how much hard work it takes, you're going to put in the hard work and the persistence to become successful. Well, if you apply that to the wrong area, it's just going to be frustrating and hard. So for me, it's very interlinked with the mindset of identifying a niche area where you can become hyper specialized and that you will dominate that little sandbox or that niche area over the long term. And I see it more as mindset than just a basic strategy, because you have to have the mindset that this niche area is so valuable to be a top 10 global leader in, that if you could ever get there, it would be worth millions of dollars. And that's what I started out with 13 years ago. I said, well, there's this ultra wealthy investor class, which is called a family office. Why don't I provide articles, books, videos, speak at conferences, until the point where I'm a top 50 or top 10 most well-known expert in that space, when you're literally serving people worth 10, 20, 50, $100 million. And since then, that's motivated me to write 13 books and speak 250 times at different live conferences and be on 150 podcasts. And all that work I would not have put in if I didn't think it was worth it to be a top player in that sandbox. And so I think that you can have all the mindset, and if you don't have that premise of, you could be persisting towards something that's not worth it, that's, there's going to be no reward at the end, or it's just a commoditized, crowded space. So I think that's really critical, is if you want to be very successful, you have to make sure that your destination is worth traveling towards, but have the mindset that it doesn't matter if it takes 5 years, 20 years, or 30 years to get there. If the destination is so valuable that along that journey, you're going to be upgrading and doing better and better, then I think that's a really critical point that, when we do some live full day workshops, some people miss that. They say, oh, well, I don't want to do the work, or I don't want to put in the time to do that. And it's usually because they don't have a destination that's so valuable that they're willing to put in however many thousands of hours of work to get there.
And we have a "we want it now" culture as well. The people think they can get things very, very quickly and easily without putting in the work. So you said there's mindset, and then there's strategy, and then there's taking action as well, isn't there?
Right, on the execution. I guess that's one thing related to people want gratification now. People talk about millennials not wanting to put in work. It's like a famous thing that people have heard 1,000 times. And one time I commented to someone, I was like, well, I got done with my undergrad from a no-name school, and I didn't want to get paid $35,000 a year out of undergrad. And so I tried to skip some steps, and it worked. So maybe that attitude is not all bad. My first year out of undergrad, I made $75,000. And then within probably about 2 years or 2.5 years at most, I was making $100,000 a year. And the way I did that was by not accepting the status quo and by creating my own luck. But the person pointed out that I said that to, well, you put in hundreds of hours of work, Richard, in cold calling and reaching out to CEOs and going through the Chamber of Commerce in Portland, Oregon, and telling someone you'd work for free and work very hard until they saw you were worth paying them for that position that usually requires 5 years experience. So it wasn't like I expected the world just because I had a smile on my face. I created my own good fortune through a lot of proactive hard work and not accepting what the average person accepts out of their undergrad. And so I think that type of mentality, that you can expect a lot, but at the beginning, you might have to work for less than everyone else to get more in the medium term. So you might have to make no income or just barely scrape by short term, and just put in extra hard work. But then it might even feel like short term, but then over the medium term, you're going to be rewarded by that delayed gratification because you're able to jump the part where you sit in a cubicle for 5 or 7 years just to show you're a certain age,
Yeah. And that's why the goal is so important, to keep that firmly in mind and keep it pasted to your shower wall so you can see it every day.
Right. And it's I added value first before expecting it. So it wasn't like I just expected them to pay me $75,000 out of school. I said, let me come in. You can fire me the first day if I don't add value. I'm a very fast learner. I'm a very hard worker. You can pay me less than the other people on the team, but it still came out to that $75,000 a year by paying me less. And I basically said, if it doesn't work out in the first day, I'm gone. No hard feelings. Just have me as a 1099 to begin with. And I added the value that created value for the firm. And so they were able to make me pay me that because I created more value than I cost them. And I think that's a really important part of the equation, is just to add way more value than you're charging anybody, and they'll want your help.
Absolutely. There's a complete win-win for everyone. What about when you have setbacks in your business? How do you get over those?
Yeah, I found that this is super relevant to mindset. I found that when there's the biggest setback, some people freeze. They don't know what to do. Some people wait for the storm to blow over. But I found that one of our biggest strengths is being agile. And when there's a big setback, just to double or triple down on output on work ethic, on creating new partnerships. And this happened to us with COVID because we offered 25 live conferences last year, and we were set to do 30 live conferences this year. And then COVID hit, and we can't offer any live conferences that aren't virtual. For probably 10 days or so, we were figuring out what we should do. But then we made a big pivot, not only going virtual, but also we ended a 12-year negotiation to buy commercialrealestate.com. It was listed for $1.2 million for over a decade, and we were able to acquire it for $500,000 because of COVID, and not only make our platform digital and grow that way, but also we've been able to grow our investor relations marketing agency and then launch commercialrealestate.com, and now grow that to what's on track to be a 7-figure business next year. And so I think Nassim Taleb has a book called Anti-Fragile, and I think the more that there is a dynamic, whether it's a strong wind or a flood or a pandemic or something else, the people who can change shape slightly or adapt to it over aggressively. Like one thing I learned when training for soccer with a cross-country friend is whenever they came to a hill, they would run even faster. They don't slow down when they came to a hill. And I think that mindset of like, okay, here's a hill, so let's run up it twice as fast as we were jogging on the flat land, because it might take that to get there at a good time. So I think that's really critical to being successful through challenges in business.
Yes, it's courage. It takes courage as well to pivot, especially when you're not sure whether it's going to work or not. It's taking a risk, isn't it?
Right, for sure.
And taking risks can feel very scary for many entrepreneurs, and they are sitting on their hands and just waiting for this situation to pass and hoping they're going to have a good business at the end of it. But it's actually taking the action when it feels scary to take the action. That's when we can get some huge rewards, because not many people are doing it.
Right, for sure. I think right now people are outsized rewarded for taking big actions. During COVID, we've been pressing forward on a partnership with a $10 million a year dental clinic chain and helping them grow to the next level. I went to go get my car serviced somewhere, and I saw their business model. I saw they had 25 locations. I cold reached out to them and found out they had a $100 million exit as a family and were ultra wealthy. I met with them. I met with their board again last week, and they're growing, but they are not using a structure that's very efficient in how they grow. So I offered them a better investment structure that they could use with their investors or mine. And now we're negotiating, how I could be a partner in that business. So people who, have their eyes open can create opportunities while others are just complaining about the government or protesters or Republicans or whatever. There's always something they can just complain about. But if that's where you focus your energy, then that's what's going to consume your mind. And I think if you watch social media too much, you just get kind of sucked into this binary, constant fight over who are the crazy people, who's wrong. And, there's not many central views on social media a lot of the time. A lot of this extreme memes and statements just kind of burn your mental energy as a business person, I think.
It does. And it's very unproductive as well. Now, you mentioned something really interesting. You mentioned that you basically did some outreach when you went to get your car serviced and you made the approach. Outreach is something that's really key, isn't it, in growing our businesses? But again, it's something that many entrepreneurs are scared to do because they don't want to feel pushy or salesy. But this is a really key piece, or a key strategy that we can all start doing more of. Any tips around doing outreach without coming across as pushy or salesy?
Yeah, I would just try to always figure out how you add value first. So with this most recent group, I said I represent 272 investors under contract. We're looking at a retail location like yours right now with one of my investors already. I'm local to you. Do you want to meet for 10 minutes? And I can explain how we could help with our investor base in your business. And that's what got a response. I sent an email to 2 people there, and I got a response from both. And I think being local helps a lot, but knowing how you could add value up front is really the key. Like, no one wants to reply to a sales pitch. They want to reply to someone, like someone cold called me this morning and left a voicemail saying, "Oh, if you want to call the health whatever center, we can talk about your health insurance." They didn't suggest at all how they would add value or how they would help me. So why would I call them back? I'm too busy to do that. So I think that's key. But I think what's even more important than reaching out is to figure out how you can be positioned so people reach out to you. Like our running of the Family Office Club, we have 2,500 investors registered with us and about 275 under contract out of the total members. And what that means is that a lot of people find our familyoffices.com website, capitalraising.com. And because they find those websites, they send us the deal that they're raising capital for, what they're working on, and we get a ton of deal flow. And people are finding us, and investors find us. And that makes it so we don't have to reach out cold so much to people. It might just be reaching out to people who joined our email list and opted in for a book or a digital asset or an infographic or something. And that's why we went and acquired the commercialrealestate.com asset too, because we know that with that branding and that positioning, that we can add value first, get to know people, have them find us, hear about us. And if you know how you can add value and can turn that from reaching out to people and instead say, who is the target person I want to attract? Where do they go? Who do they trust? What do they use? Where do they congregate? And you can be at one of those touch points and you can have them coming to you every single day. Then it's a much more powerful position. And you might have to proactively reach out like I still did, just about 6 weeks ago to make that new connection. I still reach out sometimes, but I'm super busy just with people reaching out to me all the time.
Yes, it's establishing the value, creating the value, and then showing people how you can help them. How can our listeners and viewers find out more about you and your work?
I think I've mentioned our sites, probably enough. I mean, the main place is familyoffices.com. If you want to learn about ultra wealthy investors and download our free book, we've got a lot of free resources there, just like you. That's how we build, our business. And then obviously, if you're in real estate, you can check out commercialrealestate.com and see what we're up to there.
Fantastic. I've looked at both the sites and they look like they have huge value. So I'd encourage everyone to go and take a look. Richard, thank you so much for being here and bringing so much clarity around mindset. It's been an absolute joy. And thank you everyone who's been listening and watching. I hope you got huge value from it. Until next time, bye-bye for now.